Chicago. How's
Where you at?
how's Washington doing? How's Portland doing?
It's doing. We just got rain. That's what we have. We always have. It's weird when we don't. Mm-hmm. I think we had like a small tsunami. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, my family was camping on the beach, and my wife is hilarious. She's like, "I'm not leaving." Like, "Oh, are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm not leaving." So,
Buy another raft.
no, she's literally sleeping on the beach, and she's like, "I'm not going anywhere. It's fine." She's tuned out the news, I think.
Yeah. How's the workshop coming? Is that what we're calling it? A workshop?
Yeah, it's a workshop. There's going to be different sections to it, like software, but there's a foundation series, which is just going to be how to interpret raw data and phenotypes. And there's 2 modules that are completely done, and I put one of them in to the web hosting software. I have the domain set up. I have the web hosting software integrated, and then I installed the first module and finished it like an hour ago. It's like an hour ago it's done. So I need to do that with the second module, which will be quicker. And then I wanted to add a third before I launched it. And I have content that's okay or good that I could put on there, but I'm really aiming for like 95% within the best thing I can imagine. That's what I'm trying to go for. So if I have something that's like 80%, I'm like, I don't want to put it in there.
Oh, Dr. Marie Swingle. Oh, my goodness.
Hello. I wrote everything down, so I'm now committed.
You're committed.
Yeah.
I thought you did the committing.
Today I feel like I should be committed.
No.
Yeah.
How's it going out there? At least you're in Canada now, right? You're not traveling all over, or are you still traveling?
Yeah, no, I'm in Canada, busy, just full, because I'm off again. So, but such is my life. I shan't complain. How's that? How are you both?
Good. We're talking about Joshua's workshop that he's putting together on neurofeedback, and which made me think about your app. How's the what are you working on first? The Calm, or I know you both got them both going, Calm, Sleep, Brain, but like what's the latest that you're working on?
Well, Brain Calm has been out for a while. The data is strong. Our N is just increasing. The insomnia one called Sleep is out and strong. And this week, our deadline is supposedly August 1st. We'll see how that goes. But we're in full launch for that one. And we're really, really excited, of course, with the new school year coming in September for, the parents for children who are having, issues with ADHD, standard focus, and attention issues, all the way through to university students with test anxiety. And there are also features that help with age-related cognitive decline, just keeping people on the ball. And I think the key thing with our app is, everybody is focusing on stimulants for focus, no pun intended, but there's this whole other realm about, over arousal rather than under arousal with focus. So we have various different programs on it to target anxiety associated with focus versus under arousal associated focus. So there's essentially a feature for everybody, and we're really proud of the research behind it.
Dr. Marie, Radar is here, Radar Ashwood. He is our #1 question contributor. He's the reason why you have to answer all the questions on Thursdays when we do our Thursday show.
Okay, but apparently I don't tomorrow. So does that mean I have to?
No, we just have today. That's right.
Okay.
Rare Thursday morning off.
Okay.
So Jay wanted to talk about that little issue in New York. Does anybody have any thoughts on the CTE and all that? Unless Radar had. See, Radar, if you don't ask the question, then I got to do my thing. And nobody wants to hear Pete's thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can jump right in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question. If this is, a brain injury from sports, Anger and rage is the number one symptom. Okay. But, my running joke, all cats have four legs, but not all animals with four legs are cats. So we have to be really careful about jumping to conclusions. This could be an individual suffering from other forms of mental illness that just decided to take it out on individuals. But, we do know that there are rage issues with head injury, and, we see it in football, American football, and we see it in hockey. We see a lot of violence against partners as well. So some of it is hidden within family and friend units, and some of it is, as we used to say, going postal, anger at the general community. So it's not out of possibility that this was this person's not just motivation, but that there could be some causation. But we have to be really cautious. Joshua, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, I did the brain health certification program through Dr. Amen, and so he dumps a ton of data on us for that. Like, it's a 50-hour training protocol, but it's really 150 hours if you look at all the content. There's like 50 hours of video lecture, then there's reading, then there's audio, and that's like, it's 50 hours of video only. Like, there's a lot more than that. It's a very good program. But he goes over having mapped, I can't remember how many serial killers, but it's a significant amount. Every single one of them had underperfused left frontal cortexes. Yeah. And usually there was a story, and you could say it was an injury in most cases, but sometimes it was like childhood meningitis. Like, it didn't have to be concussive, but there was a cause, and regardless of the cause, it was underperfused, underactivated left frontal cortex.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that may have been, that's a serial killer specific, though. We're not talking about murderers. We're talking about, we're talking about specifically serial killers, sociopathic, psychopathic.
Yeah. And we can also throw in what I refer to as a hot cingulate. So essentially completely profuse beta, high beta, which many people refer to as gamma, meaning when you lock onto an idea, you can't let go. And if we took, we talk about typical people versus people, as you say, a sociopathic or murderous, the difference, a lot of us in moments of fury, we think about these things, but there's not one little part of our body or our brain that feels that we would ever go through with it. It's kind of the fantasy anger.
Right. Yeah.
But individuals with that hot cingulate, there actually is the possibility of them doing it.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of combinations. Like I'm trying to remember. I want to say that it was either Lanius or Seaburn's study on foster kids. They found a 70% comorbidity between, like, the trauma of foster kids also produced hot cingulates. And so when you have developmental trauma, the chances of having comorbid hot cingulates are very high.
Yeah. Now, on that note, I think it's absolutely imperative. Again, I'm going to make my cat joke that, a hot cingulate isn't necessarily always negative. I call it a hook in the water. And, you're going to be hooking something. It's a matter of whether that hooking is, positive or extremely negative or dangerous. So this hook can turn into drive. So the irony again with elite athletes is most elite athletes have this to begin with. It's a form of addiction. I mean, who practices to that? Nothing will stop them from getting their goal. So if there's nothing else negative in there, this can actually be positive. Workaholics have it. So that there can be a positive element, but if you mix that with a head injury, you're in trouble. My running analogy for this is a pit bull. Okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with the animal. It's what the animal's mark is and how the animal was trained. So I talk about, a police pit bull, just, throwing an example out. That animal will, go through tunnels and swim across oceans, et cetera, to get that criminal good doggy. But if you have a pit bull fixated on a child in a schoolyard, you've got a problem. So it's what is the athlete's pit bull doing? And then with head injury, all bets are off. And that's why I think we see such tragedy. I'm bringing up spousal abuse or partner abuse because unfortunately that's also rampant.
You think that the coordination between, like, the people who would be attracted to sports and in sports that cause head injuries creates a specific nexus of behavior.
I really believe there's something there. Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Joshua, what changes do you tend to see in the EEG after training ILF or ISF? Do you see general slowing?
You know, people always say that, and that comes from a few voices and a few critics, and I just don't buy it at all. I think that you see more noise, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I generally see less dysfunctional slowing. I can see less frontal lobe spindling beta, which is one of the things it's really good at. So it tends to activate the glymphatic system, which is interesting. There's actually research on that. You tend to, if you want to understand generally what it's going to do with QEG, EEGs, you're going to have to study something called the triple network theory. And just a lot of people just don't do that. And so they just run their Z-scores, and they look at the difference. They have no idea what this is, just a little different. I don't know the difference. They can't tell the difference. Like, yeah, well, it's not the right thing to compare it to. So yeah, study the triple network theory if you want to be someone who looks and compares maps with ISF, ILF. I don't particularly find that to be super easy because there's not like a lot of distilled beginner level stuff for that. So, sorry.
Dr. Marie, you got to take on it, Dr. Marie?
Well, I mean, people have said to me, it's not a dead horse that I'm going to beat. It's absolutely imperative. You know, you got to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you have potential for high risk for harm, harm to the individual you're working with and harm for people around. And when you're talking about, you can see the compounding we're talking about. We're talking about a certain baseline manner that a brain functions, which attracts an individual into a certain discipline, which if you get a head injury on top of it can like flip it around to an individual becoming very dangerous to themselves and others around. You want somebody who knows the brain and what they're doing to facilitate assisting this, period.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not the gentlest of all protocols. I call it kind of punchy. And so it's not like what you would want to use on a sensitive individual, at least not right away. I don't prefer to use like ISF1, for example, on people with brain injuries, or I don't use ILF on people with brain injuries, just to be clear. Now, it doesn't mean I wouldn't pull it in later, but I'm definitely not going to start with it, let me tell you. And there's just certain phenotypes that it just doesn't work on. And not that many, but there's a few, like the low voltage fast phenotype. It's just like, no, just do amplitude training. That's going to work way, 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 way better. You're not going to get much ground with a low voltage fast. You're going to get fantastic results doing the appropriate amplitude trainings with those phenotypes. And there's a few others. So.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I mean, I don't think I'm conservative at all. I'm very cautious. I mean, we do a lot of experimental work with proper sign-off from clients, of course, at the Swingle clinic, but we don't do experiments per se, right? And whenever we're dealing with head injury, we go so slow because you can re-trigger inflammation. I mean, we can go on and on about this. Really cautious and go safe and slow. When
you activate the central nervous system through neurofeedback, especially something that's really strong like ISF or ILF, but you can do the same thing with SMR. You can have something called a penumbra, which is a low oxidated tissue in the brain that is not properly vascularized, which could be from genetics, or it could be from disease, or it could be from the injury itself. And it's that Latin word penumbra. It means shadow. And in about 83% of the subjects, that will maintain indefinitely without something to act on it and repair it or fix it. So like hyperbaric oxygen therapy, or some sort of gentle training. You can overtrain where you actually burn more resources like oxygen and the vascular system can resupply. And it's kind of metaphorically like sending an asthmatic for a jog. A little bit of running is good for asthma, too much, injury. And that's exactly what they do in training.
Yeah.
Where's the rage?
Both going, Pete.
Where's the rage coming from? I'm guessing it starts when you're a kid, and you can either be really upset or you can do it outward or inward. Am I looking at it the right way? Like what you?
No, because a drive does not need to be associated with rage. In fact, it's not. If rage gets in the way, it's going to destroy your drive. So strong personality without dominance or rage is very, very successful in anything they do. Now, of course, we're going to have to throw in some culture. Let's go back not too many years, in terms of the way we train big males. We train them to repress emotions and actually to use power, weaponize power. Okay. Not the best. I mean, it might help you short term in careers and stuff, but don't get me going on this stuff. But if you have somebody with really, really good drive, and the frontal lobes are balanced, I mean, there's nowhere they're not going to be able to go in sports and elsewhere. But if you have natural or genetic forms of imbalance in the frontal lobes, not even talking about head injury, I mean, there are genetic forms of depression. So essentially where blue moods run in family, you see an unevenness in the frontal lobes. There's the Davidson imbalance that we see as well. So there are all kinds of different forms of mood interference that we see in the frontal lobes. And of course, head injury, you compound that on any type of liability. That's where you're going to get anxious depressions, you're going to get rage, you're going to get all kinds of things. I think rage, I'm going to throw boxing in as well. I think you're recruiting the wrong thing. Anger, I think, can be an extremely efficient emotion if it's wielded wisely. And anger is very different than rage. Okay, rage you don't have any control over. Anger you can wield wisely. It can be a tool. Now you can also wield it without wisdom. And I don't have to say any more. That's bad news as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Have you ever heard of the book How Emotions Are Made by Lisa Barrett?
Nope.
I think you'd love it. It's technical, but most neurofeedback people are good at that.
We're technical.
But it kind of goes over. It's a scientist publishing a book on her findings on studying emotions, and her findings were essentially that we have somatic-based sensations, and that we essentially assign those an emotion based off of a construct that is from the historical interpretation of that sensation across time, which you don't think of that. It's kind of common sense when you say it that way, but the implications are pretty wild. So you think of like ACE scores really are kind of the difference, for lack of a better description, about why someone views it as a positive drive or a negative drive, or what they do with that drive, or what they even call that drive. It has everything to do with ACE scores. Yeah. And it's not, so for example, we're not having the same emotions when we think we are. We're really projecting, and it's all just a custom kind of projected experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of a lot of the work we do with pro athletes, we do talk about motivation. If your motivation is to prove to the kids in high school that you were really that great, you don't go nearly as far, right? So, I mean, that's.
Oh no, we lost Marie.
What? Oh,
she's back.
There we go.
Oh, you're back. We lost you.
Yeah, got a nice little message, something about uploading data. So
you were just saying you don't go nearly as far when your motivation is to impress your peers.
Well, when your motivation is based on anger, revenge, negative self-esteem, or even ego that's too strong.
What's the best motivation?
Intrinsic.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that answer. Yeah.
Basic.
Hold on. Carrot or
also
stick?
Joy of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you love what you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's play. If it's play. Oh no, we lost her again.
We have a little digital Botox going on. So carrot or stick? There we go. Botox is over.
I give up any piece of equipment. I call it tech revenge. I just lectured again last night on tech. So.
Well, that Windows 95, it'll bog you down.
Yeah. No. Yeah, just in terms of how we motivate athletes, I think a lot of it is negative. That when it stops being a game and starts being a profession, you shouldn't lose the joy. And I think it's very, very important for any of us who take our work or our careers seriously to not get bogged down in the work. Work well, not hard. Remember the game in the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. I'm going to have some fun though. And Pete, you're going to cringe. Just for the rest of us poor sods out there, even when you lose a game as a pro athlete, you still make $1 million.
Sounds horrible.
You might not get your contract renewed, but you're going to be saved from a head injury. There's some bad humor.
I realized my mic was down here. Sorry, Pete.
Okay.
Oh, what do opioids do to the EEG?
Ha! Screw it up.
Screws it up, slows it down.
Yeah. And long term.
Can you? Would that be an artifact, Joshua?
Artifact?
Go ahead, Dr. Marie. I was trying to be smart.
No, long-term opioid abuse, metaphorically starts to eat up the brain. So essentially it really, in terms of the way we operate, we slow down. But what actually happens in the brain is it speeds up. You get a lessening of the slow brainwave activity that helps to quiet, and you get increased beta, both in the frontal region as well as in the occipital region, which is part of the horrible cycle of addiction, because you're actually causing the hyperarousal that for many individuals attracted them to opioid abuse.
So
the first time.
classic 101 research on uppers, downers, all arounders. If you are in chronic pain and you do not medicate that patient. I used to work in medical. I was an Army medic and orthopedic specialist for the military. I did life flights. That was my thing. Within 2 years, their pain threshold starts going up in a non-linear way. So they become more tolerant after 2 years, and that goes up non-linearly. And there's no limit to how much pain they can become tolerant of. When you take opioids, within 2 years, the inverse starts happening. Within 2 years, there's a noticeable decrease in pain tolerance with also no limit on how low your tolerance can drop, which is terrifying unless you've seen it. It's more terrifying if you've seen it, I think. It's bad. It's so bad. So I'm curious if you have any insights neurologically into that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things should be used, very temporarily as quote unquote little band-aids as you get some professional help, either with the mechanical issue or the somatic issue, as simple as that. I think one of the big things, we need to take the negative out of somatic. Just because you cannot see a mechanical reason doesn't mean it's not real. And I would say the majority of opioid addiction that does come from chronic pain, they cannot identify a mechanical or muscular, or like they literally cannot see it. And that's where we loop in a lot of the mood disorders, et cetera, that kind of go along with it. So I know I probably didn't answer your question directly enough, but I think it's imperative for everybody to give the big picture. But I mean, the other thing we have to be very realistic about is there are profiles that are more apt to be attracted to opioids as well. People talk about addictive personalities. I want to be really careful about popularizing it. But if you have excessive fast wave activity, initially an opioid will bring it down. And exactly what you were talking about is if you reuse it, it will actually specifically what you were talking about in terms of what's happening with the EEG itself.
Yep. Pretty bleak stuff.
Yeah.
There's actually legislation from about 15 years ago where they essentially banned the use of opioids for any chronic condition. And every administration since then has been kicking the can down the road because nobody wants to implement it, because nobody wants to see the fallout of its implementation. But the doctors who prescribe opioids for chronic disorders know exactly what they're doing, and they're basically treating themselves instead of you. They're treating their discomfort from telling you no, instead of giving you something that would be best for you in the long run. And that's the sad truth.
Well, I'm going to loop in antibiotics. We've known for
Mhm.
years and years and years that 80% of the time you go to the doctor, you don't need an antibiotic. In fact, it's dangerous to the rest of the world. And, we're in the situation we are in now, antibiotic resistant bacterias, when there was absolutely no need, and the doctors prescribing same thing. They knew they wouldn't help. They were just going for the placebo effect. Well, this is a case where placebo harmed the rest of the world population.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
We got to order up.
Please go. Yep.
Hi, Neuronoodle, EEG wise, can we determine if heart deceleration for 12 minutes during childbirth have had any negative impacts on a child's brain?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a big depends question. Yeah.
So the child's brain is designed for all kinds of variables to lose up to half the neurons and bounce back. But that being said, unless it doesn't. So it's like it can come back from the unthinkable because it's designed to do that. Like the birth canal is not large enough, it kind of squishes the head. It's fine. Nature prepared for that. That's not like something to even be avoided. It's not like C-sections are better. They're not. There's natural ways are usually best, but for most people that is. But there's mechanisms to protect the child. But there's also reasons why those mechanisms fail, and we don't fully understand when they succeed and when they fail, and what kinds of things make them fail at what greater rates. We don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually going to jump in a little bit. It's not very common knowledge, but in terms of women's bodies and the evolution of women's bodies, the birth canal is actually getting narrower. Hip girth is actually getting narrower. Now, some of that is a bit of natural selection, believe it or not, in terms of how the attractiveness in the majority of cultures is about narrower hips, which ironically have significantly more troubles in childbirth and really put mothers and the infants in more and more danger. So that this is a real weird one. But if you look at the percentages of women that die in childbirth in Western societies, with some exceptions, it's going down because of the C-section. But unfortunately, the popularity of the C-section is going up. So this is a political
50%.
argument. Yeah. So, and the other issue is, in terms of why women's bodies evolve. So wider hips are better for childbirth, but narrower hips are better for movement. So given that we're upright bipedal, the narrower your hips are, the faster you are, the more agile, the more movement you have, versus wider hips essentially propagate the species. So it's going to be really, really interesting to watch what evolution does with us. But I would say in Western societies, if, the world blows up and females cannot get medical care, or if we really don't support midwives and doulas and support all of that, females are going to be in trouble in childbirth again.
Yeah. What about forceps?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what about forceps and then cone head babies? Does that do anything to the brain?
No, Pete, absolutely nothing. No,
well,
yeah.
When you see four little marks on the spectra or on the data, and you're like, oh, I've got a neuromarker over here and over here and over here and over here. Were you a forceps baby? Yeah. How'd you tell? Oh dear.
Well, again, it kind of flows right into what I was talking about. If the life of the mother and the life of the child is in danger, then forceps makes some sense. Okay, so it's not good for the child, but you're potentially saving 2 lives. But there are other, this is going to sound horrible, but cupping procedures, there are vacuum procedures. Really good midwives and doulas know how to manually work. So essentially, one is an emergency situation. The other are incompetent doctors using metal tools as opposed to a lot of I would say, well-established manipulation skills of midwifery that are lost in modern Western medicine.
Yeah, check this out.
Sarah, welcome to the show. Oh, Sarah, I'm a doula, postpartum doula. That's not why I'm here, though.
Welcome.
What does the brain look like during states of joy? I don't know. I'm always
Depends what you
unhappy.
mean by joy.
Can you repeat the question there, Pete? I'm on my little telephone. I can't read.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a doula, postpartum doula. LOL.
Awesome.
That's not why I'm here, though. What does the brain look like during states of joy?
Well, we're talking about states and traits. I
Yes.
look at traits, not necessarily states. So essentially, we have balances in the front, left, and the right. So people who are prone to depression all the way through to euphoria. So you can tell to a certain extent as aspects of personality based on the left and the right. States of joy. I know, some folks, the yogis, et cetera, are looking into that, but that's not my big area of knowledge. Joshua, can you add a little bit more?
I don't study it enough to have the information readily on my mind. I know that you can probably talk, and you and I can both talk about the difference between like alpha 1 and alpha 2 being very internally focused versus externally focused, relaxed states, meditative states. And it does come down to like, what do you mean by joy? And because when Sarah says, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm sorry. But when they say joy, it might not be what somebody else says when they say joy. That joy is also a construct, and it's a somatic sensation that across time they attribute to what they're projecting other people mean when they say joy. But it doesn't mean that it's actually the same thing between people. And that's the problem with emotion words, is that there aren't, and Lisa Barrett makes it really, really clear in her research, there isn't any unifying pattern between people when it comes to what the emotions mean to them. There's no correlation.
Yeah, I'll throw in happiness as well. I mean, that's a huge one that's debated. We also talk about generalized expectations, and I hate to say it, but a lot of people are talking about how, a constant state of happiness is just not attainable. It's unrealistic, right?
Intense gratitude. Oh, wait, hold on. So I do believe, and I apologize for not remembering it, but I do believe that was covered in some of Eamon's literature. But gratitude is going to be, I think, an alpha 1 state. It's going to be slower alpha meditation like frequencies, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But it's been 10 years, so it's been a while. I got to review that content. So
how do you get gratitude? You have to have scarcity first, don't you?
No, not at all.
That's the huge error that's being made. Yeah. And in fact, one of the things that most of us in psychological healthcare are really, really trying to coach parents into is instilling the notion of basic gratitude in their children, and also in spouses as partners. Somebody does the smallest thing for you, brings you a cup of tea. Say thank you, even for the totally expected, say thank you. It does wonders for not just the mood of the person doing the small thing, but also for you. Also, if we want to get back into the EEG and the things, we talk about the mirror neurons, also the way faces light up and how we interread that through and through. So gratitude is huge and lacking in our culture now.
Sonia thanks us for the explanation. She appreciates it, but
go ahead, let's have it.
My question was that regardless of the human's evolution path, would that deceleration specifically put any harm on a child's brain?
Don't know. It could, but I don't know that it would in that child's case. Deceleration simply signifies distress, but it doesn't mean that harm is occurring because of the distress. The distress could take place for a number of reasons. 12 minutes feels like a long time. And so the distress could be something meaningful within those 12 minutes because of the length. But that being said, just because there's distress doesn't mean there's harm. Just because there's harm doesn't mean the nervous system isn't designed to bounce back fully from that. And so you have a number of safeguards there. So, but the answer is it could.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, the key one where we know there's potential harm is when it affects.
Is there any way to make sure it has or has not had any detrimental effects?
QEG. That's what I like. I'm biased though.
Well, you gotta have them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done brain maps on people who had severe birth trauma, and you'll be like, we can see it, but it's not the main event. Your brain is still very bright. And sometimes the case is the family's going like, no, they're very limited. I'm like, I don't know. I've looked at their brain waves. I can see the injury, but the hardware looks really, really optimistic. And sure enough, they had way more potential than people thought. So there's, I don't know. It's like you can get some objective data in brainwaves. I like it.
Yeah. The other one, I mean, I'm going to throw stroke in there, or any type of brain injury that you have to be really cautious sometimes when you read the EEG in terms of, are you looking at the damage or are you looking at the repair? Because sometimes things that are atypical are not necessarily negative. They can be extremely positive.
Well said.
What? Hey, Radar, he got a little break. He's having a little cigarette and asking, what does red light or near infrared light do to the EEG? I don't mean a pulse light like the BiLight,
right?
But using a light panel against your head.
Vasodilation. So circulation. Which is good if you have inflammation. The way that you kind of untie that knot, in part, can be to increase the circulation.
Yeah, that's a pretty quick answer. Just don't overuse it like anything else.
Yeah.
That work for you, Radar? Okay, good.
Feedback. By the way, the military, when I was the frontline medical receiver at Walter Reed, they had thousands of red light devices at the President's Hospital. Thousands. We had hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We had neurofeedback contractors, though I wasn't connected to them. But we had thousands and thousands of when we closed Walter Reed and we moved it to the Bethesda Walter Reed, they decided they had too many because they had them at both locations. So they decided to throw away all the red light devices, and the pile was taller than me. This heaping pile was taller than me. And it was under guard, so none of us were allowed to take any of them. They were just going to throw them away and destroy them, and we weren't allowed to have any of them. But the military, the government uses a lot of these alternative medicines in their government hospitals and their politicians' hospitals and their veterans' hospitals. They use things like neurofeedback. They use things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They use things like red light therapy. And for the peasants, they're not available, which is unfortunate. But this is like where I got into alternative medicine was the President's Hospital.
Well, I mean, it's funny because we think the military is a very, very conservative organization. It's not. It's just conservative in terms of what it chooses to share.
Yes, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sonia is thanking you again, Joshua, but would you mind elaborating on it? QEG can be helpful in determining that, and that was...
So when you're looking at it, so if you wanted me to get really, really specific, I was looking at somebody who was saying there was some low APGAR scores in birth, and I'm concerned. And I'm doing a brain map. I'd be paying attention to if they're older, like post-development, I'd be looking at things like peak alpha frequency to determine how much of a global impact that had. And 8 to 12 is normal. 9 hertz, generally, they do very well in school.
Yeah,
Like,
9.
okay.
Yeah, and 10 is the perfect graduate student. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
One of the things I think we really want to be cautious about, though, is causation. Okay.
Yeah.
You have individuals with, very standard birth and whatnot. And I mean, their alpha peak is 8.5. So just because you have had a difficult birth doesn't mean that was the cause of this. I mean, the really good news is we can tweak people's alpha up with neuro. I mean, it's a standard practice for children with attentional problems all the way up to seniors that are having the beginnings of tip of tongue or memory loss, age-related cognitive decline, all of those things. So, yeah.
Do you find that the literature on like 1.5 hertz being kind of the range that we can usually coax out of people to be consistent in your clinical experience?
I find the variation is incredible. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
we have had people that don't move much, and also let's not
Mhm.
let's not forget toxicity. A
Yeah.
lot of the time, alpha doesn't move because there's some mysterious source, and we'll find out that it's mold. The one that I do a lot of work on is excessive interactive screen use or exposure to the EMF fields, etc. We see this in people who work in construction. So carpet layers are obvious because of the glue, but plaster does a lot of these things. So marijuana.
I find
yeah.
that with toxicity, we often get side effects with training. That's
Mhm.
kind of that's when I'm cued to think, oh, we got to look more.
Yeah.
I'm curious if that's consistent with your experience.
Yep.
great.
Not all the time, but it has happened. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is low peak alpha also correlated with chronic fatigue and the fatigue that comes from aging? That's from Radar.
Can be.
Depends.
Fair. Yeah, it's a fair summary. Especially if you use like for example, I have a faster alpha peak, and I also have migraines. And so at times when allergy season, I'll use like topiramate, which lowers your alpha peak, and it'll lower it, not that much. But because that's kind of a special skill of mine, I feel chronic fatigue overwhelming because it's something I rely on heavily. And so while it moves it not even below what is considered optimal, I feel it dramatically because it's something I rely on. So it's all in the details. People are very unique.
Yeah, I hear you. The other thing to not forget is viruses. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any child that has recently had a cold, their alpha is going to be off.
COVID.
Thing with adults, and that sometimes it can stick in there for around 3 months. So on an intake you say, hey, have you recently been ill or sick? And they go, no, but it's a little way back. We obviously see it with chronic disease. So fibromyalgia, obviously, certainly, lupus, any of the chronic issues. Low alpha.
Well, like there's some sort of central, like it looks like ADHD almost, but you can get kind of a theta when there's an acute immune response, and you don't want to really train that down if it's showing up in one session and you don't know why it's there. You don't want to just like switch your protocols because that could be their immune response.
Exactly.
So yeah, I've seen peers make that mistake. Like, oh man.
Higher peak alpha is correlated with norepinephrine, which makes me think old people are more fatigued due to a decline in norepinephrine. Is that why I'm tired?
I don't know.
I assumed that it had to do with neuron density rather than neurochemistry, but I could be wrong. I don't know. That's a good question.
Same.
Save that question for someone smarter like Jay.
And I put it in chat. If we leave you guys hanging on a question or your order doesn't get put up to the kitchen, always email pete@neuronoodle.com and then we'll bring it up with the crew on the next show. Sonia's back for more. The problem is that surprisingly, the APGAR score, I don't know what that is determined subjectively, and there's no systemic approach that can be taken objectively.
It's also not very detailed. Yeah, I get it.
For what is the APGAR score?
It's a score that you give infants, essentially in the early stages of kind of cleaning them up, but it relates to pallor, movement, how fast they cried, difficulties in childbirth. There's just a handful of check boxes, and they essentially get a negative score on a few of these tallies if something kind of went wrong. And it's not a heavy point system. There's only a handful of points.
So is this a score that you get before the ACEs score?
Oh yeah, way before. Hopefully. though some families.
I think we have to be a little bit cautious, because sometimes infants just turn around within minutes, if not days.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, Nita's back.
Brain's designed to do it. That's something that people keep forgetting. Like you can lose, I think it's like half your neurons at birth and bounce right back. It's designed to do that.
Hida, I'm glad you didn't miss the podcast. Here's his question. Can low voltage alpha change using neurofeedback?
Absolutely. It's my favorite. No, it's yes. I love it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. These are my favorite. These are my favorite. I literally just uploaded a module on this. It's not available to the public, but this is my favorite topic.
What was the tell us about your module, Joshua?
Well, like low voltage fast phenotypes are associated with genetic 4 variations. So it's a genotype probably rather than a phenotype. It's genetically caused more likely than correlated. It's heritable to 80%, meaning you're very likely to pass it down to your kids. It's associated with addiction of alcohol or benzos, can be opioids, like Dr. Maria said. And it's also correlated strongly with anxiety, insomnia, and it's heavily correlated with PTSD, but that's probably correlation, not causation, because you have lots of children of dependent adults that are prone to PTSD because of the environment of what that gene does to the family. That's a 1-minute version of a 4-hour course. So
alpha to me, it's a barometer. Okay. And,
Mhm.
When I'm talking with the lay population, I call it the magic wave. I mean, it just governs so much in so many ways. You talk about genotypes, phenotypes, environmental influence, epigenetics. I mean, it's all in there. I mean, a short lecture on alpha is 3 hours,
Yes.
short one.
Ozempic and skyrocketing theta. Ooh, that'll get the algorithms. On the midline, that was hard to train down, also felt way more irritable. Not a question, just an observation.
I have a lot of questions too.
On the midline, okay. See, that makes me curious. I wouldn't expect it on the midline.
Huh. It's a very odd medication.
Yeah.
Saray, thank you for the response. I appreciate it. As far as I can tell from the program that I'm using is that gamma rides alpha and takes beta up in amplitude with it. The state comes after deep meditation. And it's intensely, I love this word, blissful.
Okay.
Dr. Marie, Pete, and Joshua, I appreciate your time. Thank you, Sonia, for showing up.
Thank you. I
It's a
appreciate
little hot.
your presence as well. The gratitude show today.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? Like that? Wrong side?
Care Bear care.
Yeah.
Let's see. More people probably need to do their QEEG while on Ozempic before we can make any judgments as to what it does. Radar he brought up Ozempic earlier, and he says when he tried it, he noticed a skyrocketing theta on the midline. It's hard to train down.
I have no idea. I'm going to back out. I mean, the only thing is, whenever you have these magic drugs, you have to really watch it. I mean, one of the quote unquote side effects that's starting to appear is female hair loss with it.
Blindness.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the big one. But so sure, you lose 30 pounds, but you also lose your hair. Yeah.
Yeah,
that was 30 pounds on you, Dr. Marie.
I'm not aware that there are any longitudinal studies on it, which means that we're experimenting on the public with it.
Yeah. Well, the other one, we do know, for example, in terms of muscle loss as well. So, I mean, I talk a lot about females because we tend to be less than males, but also in terms of bone density loss.
Oh no.
And hair loss. What is really happening now? Hair loss tends to be associated when there's some kind of threat to the body or to the energy systems of the body, and the body needs to recruit more energy. So it essentially sheds the responsibility for things that aren't needed. So hair, is essentially a vanity and
disposable commodity.
Yeah. So also nails. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why females' hair thins after menopause, because you don't need the display mane to attract a mate for fertility, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, and I'd say now it's pretty even in terms of males and females, but more females, I think, are taking Ozempic for the vanity, for the, the extra few pounds that aren't medically problematic. So as always, watch the research, read the small print, and be really cautious about jumping on these bandwagons before we completely understand it.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, Radar, what EEG abnormalities at which 10 to 20 sites do you tend to see in someone with Parkinsonian tremor?
Depends on the progression. I don't know if Dr. Marie wants to take this, but I do have some thoughts on that. Usually you'll see a 5 hertz, tremor, which is a pretty good indication. You'll get instabilities, and then eventually you'll get gamma, which will be locked on, not chirping.
Yeah, you see, the chirping, the rhythmicity, and also, good old fashioned theta SMR as well. Never forget the oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, complicated one. Hate to see it.
Yeah.
There's usually also a dopamine finding where you'll get a lot of lateralized delta, and that's another interesting thing that's really specific to Parkinson's. And I've had cases that came in, they were diagnosed with Parkinson's, and they did not have the lateralized delta. So we asked them to consider a second opinion tactfully and carefully, and they got it, and they were diagnosed with something completely different that had different treatments that also worked. Good. So win.
Good. Yeah.
Because you can get it confused with things like MS, Sorry.
Being direct with clients and reinforcing the notion of a second opinion, that you can never go wrong.
Yeah. I feel like we don't have a lot of good neurofeedback clinics in our area. We're the only clinic that does evidence-based approaches within like 200 miles in both directions. And so I have to be really, really careful because of the local medical clinics. And I want to fix our reputation.
Boy, oh boy, do I hear you.
I'm doing okay.
It's funny because, I think everybody knows that I was involved with, the equipment and practitioner standards, writing that for the APA so that we got reinstated as a subclass in psychology. And that expires in 2026. Yep. So, in terms of the individuals that, buy a piece of equipment, weekend workshop type of thing, that really do a disservice to the art and the science of working with the EEG. It's a major issue and unfortunately continues to grow.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
Radar watched Lisa Tatarin video and watched her train away someone's tremor by training up 9 to 12 at C3, A1, and down training 1-7.
9 to 12. That's interesting. At C3? That's bold. Fascinating.
Why is that bold, Joshua? The video editor wants to know.
We don't usually train up alpha centrally, and yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think they might have been trying to go after SMR instead of alpha, hence the C3.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I was just kind of scribbling it down to see the reason. But yeah, I mean, that could be the motivation, but.
It's I'd have to ask about the case because it could be that they were really slowed, and that would be SMR for some people possibly. Yeah, that's happened before.
Dr. Marie, we talked about an app earlier. I think I saw something in the Swingle clinic. Because we have some new people that just popped in.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what's going on, the latest update, what you got going, what you got cooking? Anything we talked about here, can your app help out with?
App, and we have the Brain Calm, which helps with quieting without sedation. So that's absolutely key. So it brings up the theta beta ratio, eyes open and eyes closed in the occiput. It brings down the high beta beta ratio or the gamma beta ratio but it also brings down low high alpha, so it doesn't sedate. We're really, really proud of that result. We also have an app called Sleep for Insomnia, where we do get the sedative properties. And this week, we're putting the final touches on the write-up. The research is all done. The app itself is ready, but it's the write-up, which is my issue. So I'm the one behind for our Focus app. Which covers all elements of focus, from ADHD and attention difficulties to test anxiety to elders that feel that they're slowing down. So it's a very, very comprehensive app called Focus.
Where do we send people to?
Well, we have the Swingle Clinic in Vancouver, where we treat people on the floor, on the ground. And then we have our apps that you can get through swinglesonic.com, and the clinic is swingleclinic.com.
Last question of the night, and a great question from Lynn. How do we register for Joshua's phenotype class?
I think I'll have something ready next week. I'm kind of a perfectionist on it, and I wanted to get 90 to 95% within the best thing I can imagine. And I'm a little shocked that I was successful at all. I think I've got like 5 or 6 hours pretty much ready to go. I wanted it to be closer to 10, but I think I'll compromise and put something out there just to get the ball rolling, and then I'll probably be able to refocus on it more quickly. But I am really, really glad with the quality. It literally finished it like 3 hours ago. So I'm very, very excited. It's all uploaded. I just need to build out some of the connections on the software on the back end. But it should be ready next week. And so, Lynn, I don't want to forget you, but if you tune in, I'll have some connections for Pete to use to get you connected to it, okay?
I'm very interested. Outstanding. Joshua Moore, where do we send people if they're in Washington, if they're in Northern Oregon? Where do we send them to?
Alternative Behavioral Therapy. We're like 2 miles north of Portland, Oregon. We service people in Washington State. And we do a little bit of international consulting each week, just 1 or 2 hours. So a little bit of people who want to use us for that. We're always happy to collaborate. We find it fun, so we give it a lower rate than our regular rate. So
outstanding. Well, Dr. Marie, thank you for hanging with us. Joshua Moore, as usual, thank you. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central, hook or by crook, good or bad, we will be here answering your questions. If not, we'll be answering them in the next show. Everybody have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thank you all. See you later.
Thanks.
Ciao.